Sarah Martinez had always been the type of person who arrived at the office 30 minutes early and stayed until the cleaning crew started their rounds. At 28, she had climbed from an entry-level marketing coordinator to senior marketing specialist at Davidson & Associates, a mid-sized consulting firm in downtown Chicago. The October wind whipped through the city streets as she walked to work that Tuesday morning, her mind racing with the presentation she had prepared for the quarterly leadership review. The gray clouds overhead seemed to mirror her anxious anticipation as she clutched her leather portfolio containing months of research and strategic planning. She had spent weeks crafting what she believed was the perfect pitch for the regional marketing director position that had opened up. The role represented everything she had been working toward since graduating from Northwestern 5 years ago with a double major in marketing and business administration. Sarah knew every client account by heart, had increased campaign effectiveness by 37% in her current role, and had mentored 3 junior staff members who were now thriving in their positions. Her colleagues regularly sought her advice on complex client situations, and she had successfully managed crisis communications for their second-largest account when a product recall threatened their reputation last spring. Before we continue with Sarah's incredible journey of determination and ultimate success, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit that notification bell because we're giving away a brand new motorcycle to one lucky winner. All you need to do is subscribe, like this video, and comment below telling us where you're watching from. We'll announce the winner next month, so don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. The Davidson & Associates building was a 30-story glass tower that reflected the morning sun across Michigan Avenue. Sarah had walked these marble corridors every day for 2.5 years, building relationships with clients and colleagues while consistently exceeding her performance targets. The company specialized in strategic consulting for Fortune 500 companies, and Sarah had played a crucial role in securing and maintaining several multimillion-dollar contracts. Her innovative approach to digital marketing integration had become a model that other departments tried to replicate. The boardroom on the 15th floor had floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Lake Michigan. Sarah smoothed her navy blazer, the same one she had worn to her first client presentation 3 years ago, and checked her notes one final time before entering. Around the mahogany conference table sat 5 executives, including Margaret Wellington, the company's vice president of operations and Sarah's direct supervisor for the past 2 years. Also present were Thomas Chan, the chief financial officer, Rebecca Foster, head of human resources, David Kumar, senior partner, and James Morrison, the managing director who had founded the company 15 years earlier. Margaret was a woman in her early 50s who had built her career during a time when corporate America was even less welcoming to women in leadership roles. She had started at Davidson as a junior analyst in 1998 and had methodically climbed the corporate ladder through what many described as calculated political maneuvering rather than innovative thinking. She had a reputation for being tough but fair, though some whispered that she had become overly protective of her territory as younger employees began showing ambition that matched or exceeded her own capabilities. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect chignon, and her expression remained neutral as Sarah began her presentation, though there was something in her eyes that suggested she had already made up her mind about the outcome. Sarah's voice was steady and confident as she outlined her comprehensive vision for expanding the company's digital marketing footprint into emerging markets. She presented detailed analytics showing potential revenue growth of 23% over 18 months, outlined strategic partnerships she had researched with technology companies in Singapore and Amsterdam, and demonstrated her deep understanding of both domestic and international market trends. Her presentation included case studies from successful campaigns she had managed, testimonials from satisfied clients, and a detailed implementation timeline that showed realistic milestones and measurable outcomes. The proposal she presented was revolutionary for Davidson & Associates. Sarah had identified opportunities in Southeast Asian markets that competitors were overlooking, developed relationships with local marketing agencies that could provide crucial cultural insights, and created a scalable framework that could be adapted for different regional markets. She had even secured preliminary agreements from 2 potential international clients who were interested in working with Davidson if they expanded their geographic reach. The other executives asked thoughtful questions that demonstrated their genuine interest in her proposal. Thomas Chun inquired about budget allocation and return on investment projections. Rebecca Foster wanted to understand the human resources implications of international expansion. David Kumar asked about regulatory compliance in different countries, and James Morrison questioned her about competitive analysis and market positioning strategies. Sarah provided comprehensive answers to every question, drawing on months of research and preparation. When the presentation concluded, Margaret thanked Sarah in a tone that was polite but notably cooler than the enthusiasm shown by the other executives. She asked Sarah to wait outside while the committee deliberated. Sarah paced the hallway for 23 minutes, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor as she tried to calm her racing heart. Through the glass doors of the conference room, she could see animated discussions but couldn't make out the words being exchanged. She noticed that Margaret seemed to be doing most of the talking, her gestures becoming increasingly emphatic as the conversation continued. The hallway felt like a corridor of judgment, lined with portraits of the company's founders and framed articles about Davidson's most successful projects. Sarah had contributed to many of those successes, but now she wondered if her contributions had been properly recognized or if they would be enough to secure the promotion she had worked so hard to earn. Finally, Margaret emerged alone, her expression serious and unreadable. The other executives remained in the conference room, their faces turned away from the glass doors as if avoiding eye contact. Margaret gestured for Sarah to follow her to a smaller conference room down the hall, her movements brisk and businesslike. The space felt suddenly cramped compared to the expansive boardroom they had just left, and the single window offered only a view of the neighboring building's brick wall. Margaret sat across from Sarah and folded her hands on the table, her perfectly manicured nails drumming silently against the polished surface. The silence stretched for several seconds that felt like minutes before she spoke. Her voice carried the practiced tone of someone who had delivered disappointing news many times before. Sarah, your presentation was thorough and well-researched. Your passion for the company is evident, and your track record speaks for itself. The committee was impressed by your preparation and the depth of your market analysis. Sarah felt a surge of hope, but something in Margaret's tone and body language made her stomach tighten with growing apprehension. The compliments felt like a setup for disappointment rather than genuine praise. However, Margaret continued, pausing to let the word hang in the air like a judgment, the committee has concerns about your readiness for this level of responsibility. Leadership at this level requires a certain gravitas, a proven ability to make difficult decisions that affect not just campaigns but entire departments and their livelihoods. The regional director position involves managing a budget of $12 million annually and supervising a team of 15 professionals across multiple offices. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow, each syllable carefully chosen to diminish her confidence and undermine her qualifications. She had expected constructive feedback, perhaps suggestions for additional training or mentoring opportunities, but not this categorical dismissal of her capabilities. The irony wasn't lost on her that Margaret was questioning her ability to manage people when Sarah had been informally mentoring colleagues and leading cross-functional teams for the past 18 months. What specifically would I need to demonstrate to be considered ready for this level of responsibility? Sarah asked, fighting to keep her voice level and professional despite the frustration building inside her chest. Margaret's smile was condescending in a way that made Sarah's jaw clench involuntarily. It was the kind of smile that older women sometimes gave to younger women in corporate settings, a smile that suggested patience with someone who didn't quite understand how the world really worked. Sarah, you're still quite young. Perhaps in another few years, after you've had more time to develop the kind of executive presence that clients and senior staff respond to, we can revisit this conversation. The business world can be challenging for someone who hasn't yet developed the authority that comes with experience and maturity. The phrase executive presence felt like code for something else entirely, though Sarah couldn't quite articulate what that something was. She had seen male colleagues with less experience and lower performance metrics receive promotions and opportunities that seemed to elude her despite her consistent excellence. James Patterson, who had been hired just 18 months ago, had already been promoted to senior account manager despite having half of Sarah's client retention rate. The more Margaret spoke, the more Sarah realized that this decision had been made before she ever entered the boardroom. The deliberation she had witnessed through the glass doors had likely been Margaret convincing the other executives to support a predetermined conclusion rather than a genuine evaluation of her qualifications. "I understand the committee's decision," Sarah said carefully, choosing each word to maintain her professionalism, "but I'd appreciate specific feedback on areas where I can improve. If there are particular skills or experiences that would make me a stronger candidate in the future, I'd like to focus on developing those competencies." Margaret stood, her movement signaling that the conversation was over whether Sarah was ready or not. "Focus on continuing the excellent work you're already doing in your current role. There will be other opportunities, and patience is often rewarded in corporate environments. Sometimes the best thing we can do is prove our reliability in our existing position before seeking additional responsibilities." As Sarah walked back to her desk, the familiar office environment felt different somehow, as if she were seeing it through a new lens that revealed hidden biases and unspoken limitations. The motivational posters on the break room walls seemed to mock her ambition with their generic messages about perseverance and success. The chatter of her colleagues felt distant and hollow, their casual conversations about weekend plans and office gossip suddenly seeming trivial compared to the career-defining moment she had just experienced. She sat at her desk and stared at her computer screen without really seeing it, replaying every moment of the presentation and the subsequent rejection. Had she been too aggressive in her proposals? Not aggressive enough? Was there something in her delivery that had undermined her credibility? The questions circled in her mind like vultures, picking apart her confidence piece by piece. Her colleague Jennifer Kim, who worked in the adjacent cubicle, noticed Sarah's distracted state. "How did the presentation go?" Jennifer asked with genuine concern in her voice. Sarah managed a weak smile. "They decided to go with someone who has more experience." Jennifer's expression shifted to one of confusion and frustration. "That's ridiculous. You know more about our client base and market positioning than anyone else in the department. Who are they hiring?" "They haven't announced that yet," Sarah replied, though she suspected the answer would be revealed soon enough. That evening, Sarah sat in her Lincoln Park apartment, surrounded by the career development books she had accumulated over the years. Titles like Lean In, The Confidence Code, and Nice Girls Don't Get the Corner Office lined her bookshelves, each one promising strategies for professional advancement that seemed increasingly theoretical in the face of actual corporate politics. The city lights twinkled outside her window as she nursed a glass of Pinot Grigio and considered her options with a clarity that disappointment sometimes provides. She could continue working at Davidson and Associates, hoping that Margaret would eventually recognize her potential and that future opportunities would be evaluated more fairly. Or she could take a leap of faith and pursue opportunities elsewhere, betting on her abilities in environments that might be more receptive to her talents and ambitions. The apartment felt like a reflection of her professional aspirations. Modern furniture she had carefully selected to project success, artwork that suggested sophistication and creativity, and a home office setup that allowed her to work remotely when necessary. She had built her life around the assumption that hard work and excellence would be rewarded, but tonight that assumption felt naive. Over the next several weeks, Sarah found herself increasingly frustrated with the limitations of her current role and the subtle ways that her contributions were minimized or overlooked. She watched as the regional director position was eventually filled by an external candidate, Robert Henderson, a man in his late 30s with comparable experience who commanded a salary nearly $20,000 higher than what had been offered to internal candidates during the initial job posting. Robert's first day at Davidson and Associates was marked by a company-wide introduction email that highlighted his extensive leadership experience and proven track record of driving growth in competitive markets. Sarah couldn't help but notice that his resume, which was circulated to department heads, showed a career progression that was remarkably similar to her own, with the notable difference that his achievements were consistently rewarded with promotions and salary increases. During Robert's first team meeting, Sarah observed his presentation style and strategic thinking. He was competent and professional, but his insights weren't particularly innovative, and his understanding of Davidson's client base was obviously limited. When he asked Sarah to provide background information on their 3 largest accounts, she spent 2 hours creating comprehensive briefings that covered client history, campaign performance, key contacts, and strategic recommendations. Robert presented this information to senior management the following week as his initial assessment of the marketing department's capabilities. The breaking point came during a client meeting in November with Meridian Technologies, their biggest account. Sarah had developed the entire marketing strategy for this client, a technology startup looking to expand into European markets. The campaign she had designed integrated traditional advertising with social media engagement, influencer partnerships, and content marketing in ways that had increased Meridian's brand recognition by 43% over 6 months. During the presentation to Meridian's executive team, Margaret consistently took credit for Sarah's ideas, referring to them as our team's comprehensive approach, while positioning herself as the primary strategist behind the campaign's success. When Sarah attempted to provide specific details about implementation strategies she had developed, Margaret smoothly redirected the conversation back to high-level concepts that obscured individual contributions. The Meridian executives were clearly impressed by the results they had achieved working with Davidson and Associates. When their CEO specifically praised the innovative social media integration component that Sarah had designed from scratch, Margaret smiled graciously and accepted the compliments without acknowledging Sarah's role in developing the strategy. We're particularly proud of the creative approach our team developed for the European market entry, Margaret said, using language that made it sound as if she had personally conceived the entire campaign. Our integrated methodology allows us to adapt quickly to different cultural contexts while maintaining brand consistency. Sarah maintained her professional composure during the meeting, but afterward, sitting in her car in the parking garage beneath the Davidson building, she made a decision that would change the trajectory of her career. She pulled out her phone and began updating her LinkedIn profile, crafting a summary that accurately reflected her contributions and achievements without the corporate doublespeak that had diminished her role in official company communications. That weekend, Sarah reached out to her professional network with a strategic approach that drew on relationships she had built throughout her career. She had maintained connections with former colleagues who had moved on to leadership positions at other companies, attended industry conferences where she had met executives from competing firms, and developed relationships with clients who had expressed admiration for her work. The response was immediate and encouraging. Within a week, she had 3 informal interviews scheduled with companies that were actively seeking marketing professionals with her specific combination of skills and experience. The conversations were refreshing in their directness and their focus on her actual capabilities, rather than abstract concepts like executive presence or leadership readiness. Marcus Thompson, who had been her supervisor during her first year at Davidson before moving to a director role at a competing firm, was particularly enthusiastic about her potential availability. Sarah, I've been following your work from afar, and frankly, I'm amazed Davidson hasn't promoted you yet. We have a senior marketing manager position that would be perfect for your skill set, and I know the compensation package would be significantly more competitive than what you're probably earning now. Within a month, she had received 2 serious job offers that represented substantial improvements over her current situation. One was for a senior marketing manager position at TechFlow Solutions, a growing technology company in Denver that specialized in software development for healthcare systems. The other was for a marketing director role at Henderson Strategic Consulting, a boutique consulting firm in Austin that was building a reputation for innovative approaches to business transformation. The Austin opportunity particularly intrigued her. Henderson Strategic Consulting was a rapidly growing firm that specialized in helping mid-sized companies navigate digital transformation challenges. The founder, David Henderson, had built the company from a 2-person operation to a 50-employee firm in just 4 years, and he was looking for someone to lead their marketing efforts as they expanded into new markets and service offerings. During her video interview with David, Sarah felt an immediate connection that had been missing from her interactions at Davidson and Associates. He asked thoughtful questions about her vision for integrated marketing approaches and seemed genuinely excited about her ideas for client acquisition and retention. His questions focused on specific strategies and implementation challenges rather than vague assessments of her personality or leadership style. Tell me about a time when you had to completely rethink a marketing approach because the initial strategy wasn't working, David asked during their second interview. Sarah described a situation where a client's product launch had been derailed by negative social media attention, and how she had pivoted from a traditional advertising campaign to a transparent communication strategy that acknowledged the problems and demonstrated concrete steps toward resolution. The approach had not only salvaged the product launch but had actually strengthened the client's brand reputation by showing their commitment to customer feedback and continuous improvement. David nodded approvingly. That's exactly the kind of adaptive thinking we need here. Our clients often come to us when they're facing unexpected challenges, and they need marketing support that can evolve quickly without losing strategic focus. When he offered her the position with a base salary that represented a 30% increase over her current compensation, plus equity in the company and a performance bonus structure that could add another 15% annually, Sarah accepted without hesitation. The offer also included relocation assistance, for weeks of paid vacation, and a professional development budget that would allow her to attend conferences and pursue additional training. Her decision to leave Davidson and Associates required careful planning and diplomatic execution. Sarah had been involved in several ongoing projects and client relationships that would need to be transitioned smoothly to avoid disrupting business operations. She spent her remaining weeks creating detailed documentation of campaign strategies, client preferences, and implementation processes that would help her colleagues maintain continuity. Her last day at Davidson and Associates was December 15th, and Margaret seemed genuinely surprised by Sarah's resignation, as if it had never occurred to her that someone might leave rather than wait indefinitely for recognition and advancement. During their final meeting in Margaret's corner office, the older woman appeared to be processing the implications of losing someone who had been handling significant responsibilities without appropriate title or compensation. "I'm sorry to see you go, Sarah. You were a valuable member of our team, and your departure will create some challenges for us in the short term," Margaret said, her tone carrying a note of regret that might have been genuine. Sarah nodded politely, resisting the urge to point out that valuable team members are typically promoted and compensated accordingly, or that her departure might have been prevented with different leadership decisions. "Thank you for the opportunities I've had here. I've learned a great deal about marketing strategy and client management, and I'm grateful for the experience I've gained." The conversation was cordial but brief, both women understanding that there wasn't much more to be said about a working relationship that had ultimately failed to meet Sarah's professional aspirations. The transition to Henderson Strategic Consulting was everything Sarah had hoped it would be and more. Austin's vibrant business culture and entrepreneurial energy felt like a perfect match for her ambitions, and David Henderson's leadership style created an environment where innovation was encouraged rather than stifled. He gave her complete autonomy over the marketing department while providing the support and resources necessary to implement her strategic vision. Sarah immediately began implementing the strategies she had developed but never been able to fully execute at her previous job. She hired a team of talented specialists, including Maria Santos, a social media strategist from New York who had worked with several Fortune 500 companies, and Kevin Park, a content marketing expert from Portland who specialized in B2B storytelling and thought leadership development. Her approach to building the marketing team reflected lessons she had learned about the importance of recognizing and developing talent. She looked for people with demonstrated capabilities and innovative thinking rather than focusing primarily on traditional credentials or years of experience. During the hiring process, she asked candidates to present ideas for solving actual client challenges, rather than just discussing their previous roles and responsibilities. Within 3 months, Henderson's client acquisition had increased by 45%, and their retention rate had improved to 93%. Sarah's innovative approach to storytelling in B2B marketing was generating industry attention, with several trade publications featuring articles about Henderson's unique methodology for helping companies communicate complex transformation initiatives to both internal and external audiences. The success wasn't just in numbers, but in the quality of client relationships Henderson was building. Sarah developed a system for regular client feedback that went beyond traditional satisfaction surveys to include strategic input about market trends and future needs. This approach helped Henderson anticipate client challenges and develop proactive solutions rather than simply responding to problems as they arose. Her reputation in the Austin business community grew rapidly. She was invited to speak at conferences in Miami and Las Vegas about integrated marketing approaches for consulting firms. The South by Southwest Conference invited her to participate in a panel discussion about innovative marketing strategies for professional services companies. Industry publications began reaching out to her for expert commentary on trends in B2B marketing and client relationship management. By May, just 5 months after joining Henderson, Sarah received a call that she hadn't expected, but that would provide a satisfying confirmation of the decision she had made to leave Davidson and Associates. Margaret Wellington was on the line, her voice carrying a tone that Sarah had never heard before, uncertainty mixed with what might have been desperation. "Sarah, I hope you're settling in well in Austin," Margaret began, her usual confidence replaced by something that sounded almost vulnerable. "I wanted to reach out because we're facing some significant challenges in our marketing department, and I thought you might have some insights that could help us." Sarah leaned back in her ergonomic office chair and looked out the window of her Austin office, where she could see the city's skyline bathed in the warm afternoon sunlight. The contrast with Chicago's gray November weather seemed symbolic of the change in her professional circumstances. Margaret continued, her voice taking on an increasingly strained quality. "We've lost 3 major clients in the past 2 months, including Meridian Technologies, and our marketing efforts are struggling without the strategic oversight you provided. The external candidate we hired for the regional director position lasted only 4 months before we had to let him go for poor performance and what turned out to be misrepresented qualifications on his resume." Sarah listened with professional interest but without the emotional investment she might have felt 6 months earlier. The news wasn't entirely surprising. Davidson's approach to talent management and decision-making had made such outcomes predictable. "We're restructuring our entire marketing approach," Margaret continued, "and I was wondering if you might be interested in returning to Chicago. We could offer you the regional director position with a competitive salary package, probably in the range of what you're earning now, plus some additional benefits and a more flexible work arrangement." Sarah set down her coffee cup and considered her response carefully. The offer represented a kind of vindication, confirmation that her departure had created exactly the kind of problems she had predicted when organizations fail to retain their most capable people. But it also highlighted the short-sightedness of leadership decisions that prioritize politics over performance. "I appreciate you thinking of me, Margaret, but I'm very happy where I am. Henderson is doing incredibly well, and I have equity in a growing company plus opportunities for advancement that align with my long-term career goals." There was a pause on the other end of the line, filled with what sounded like the recognition that this conversation wasn't going to unfold as Margaret had hoped. "I understand," Margaret said finally. "I just wanted to reach out and see if there might be any possibility." That conversation might have been the end of the story, but 3 weeks later, Sarah received another call from Margaret. This time, the tone was different again, less confident, more vulnerable, and carrying undertones of genuine concern about her own professional future. "Sarah, I need to be completely honest with you about what's happening at Davidson. We're losing clients faster than we can acquire new ones, and the executive team is making significant changes to address our market position. My role is being restructured as part of a broader reorganization, and I'm actively looking for new opportunities." The admission surprised Sarah, not because she was unfamiliar with corporate restructuring, but because Margaret had always projected such confidence in her job security and political positioning within the company. Margaret's voice became smaller, almost uncertain. "Actually, I was wondering if Henderson might have any openings. I know you're leading the marketing efforts there, and I have significant experience that might be valuable to a growing company like yours." The irony of the situation wasn't lost on Sarah. 6 months ago, she had been deemed not ready for a leadership role. Now, the woman who had made that determination was asking her for a job. The reversal of their positions was complete. Margaret seeking employment from someone she had once dismissed as lacking executive presence. Sarah took a deep breath and considered her response carefully. She thought about the power dynamics that had defined their previous relationship, about the opportunities that had been denied to her, and about the professional growth she had experienced since leaving Davidson. She also considered Henderson's actual hiring needs and whether Margaret's experience could contribute positively to the company's continued expansion. "Margaret, I'd be happy to discuss potential opportunities at Henderson. We're always looking for experienced marketing professionals who can contribute to our continued growth. However, any position would be in a support role under my direction, focusing on campaign execution and client relationship management." Would that be something you'd be interested in exploring? The silence on the phone stretched for nearly 10 seconds, during which Sarah could almost hear Margaret processing the implications of reporting to someone she had once supervised and whose career advancement she had blocked. When Margaret finally responded, her voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, I would be very interested in exploring that possibility. 2 weeks later, Margaret Wellington sat in the same conference room where Sarah had once pitched her vision for regional leadership, but now the roles were completely reversed. Margaret was the one presenting her qualifications, answering questions about her experience and cultural fit, and hoping to convince someone else that she deserved a chance to contribute to their organization's success. Sarah had spent considerable time thinking about whether to offer Margaret a position. Part of her wanted to simply move on and forget about their previous working relationship entirely. But she also recognized that Margaret had valuable experience and industry connections that could benefit Henderson's continued growth, particularly in the Chicago market where Davidson's struggles might create opportunities for Henderson to acquire new clients. During the interview process, Sarah was professional but direct, asking the kind of substantive questions about capabilities and strategic thinking that she wished had been asked of her at Davidson. She wanted to understand not just what Margaret had done in previous roles, but how she approached problem-solving, collaboration, and professional development. Margaret, if you join our team, you'll be reporting to me as Marketing Operations Manager. You'll be responsible for campaign execution, vendor management, and supporting the strategic initiatives that I develop with input from our entire team. The role involves significant client interaction, but within frameworks and strategies that I establish. Are you comfortable with that reporting structure and scope of responsibility? Margaret nodded, her earlier arrogance replaced by a humility that Sarah had never seen before. I understand completely, and I'm prepared to contribute wherever I can be most helpful. I recognize that Henderson has developed successful approaches under your leadership, and I'm interested in learning from those methodologies. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, covering topics ranging from specific marketing techniques to broader questions about professional growth and career development. Sarah asked Margaret to describe situations where she had made mistakes and what she had learned from those experiences. The answers revealed a level of self-reflection that suggested genuine professional growth. Sarah offered Margaret the position at a salary that was fair but significantly lower than what Margaret had earned at Davidson. It was also about $15,000 less than Sarah's current compensation, a detail that wasn't lost on either of them but that reflected the realities of their respective roles and responsibilities within Henderson's organizational structure. Margaret's first day at Henderson Strategic Consulting was a study in role reversal that demonstrated how much both women's professional circumstances had changed. Sarah conducted her orientation, introduced her to the team, and outlined the expectations for her new role. Margaret listened attentively, took detailed notes, and asked thoughtful questions about company procedures, client relationship protocols, and performance evaluation criteria. The adjustment period wasn't without its challenges. Margaret occasionally slipped into her old habit of trying to take charge of meetings or redirect conversations toward her own ideas and experiences. Each time this happened, Sarah addressed it professionally but firmly, establishing clear boundaries while maintaining respect for Margaret's expertise and contributions. Margaret, I appreciate your input and the perspective you bring from your experience at Davidson, but I need you to focus on the execution aspects of this campaign while I handle the strategic direction and client relationship management, Sarah would say, her voice calm but authoritative. Over time, Margaret learned to operate effectively within her new role. She proved to be a diligent worker who brought valuable experience to the operational side of the marketing department. She developed efficient systems for managing multiple client campaigns simultaneously, established relationships with vendors that resulted in cost savings for the company, and contributed institutional knowledge that helped Henderson avoid common pitfalls in client relationship management. Her experience with corporate politics and client expectations, while different from Henderson's more collaborative culture, provided insights that helped the team anticipate and address potential challenges before they became problems. Margaret's understanding of how large consulting firms operated enabled Henderson to compete more effectively for contracts with bigger clients who expected certain types of processes and documentation. 3 months after Margaret joined Henderson, the company secured its largest client to date, Tech Global Industries, a Fortune 500 technology company looking to completely restructure its marketing approach following a major merger. The contract was worth $2.3 million over 18 months and represented exactly the kind of opportunity that Henderson had been working towards since Sarah joined the company. Sarah led the proposal process, drawing on insights and expertise from her entire team, including Margaret's operational knowledge and understanding of large-scale campaign management. The proposal demonstrated Henderson's ability to combine innovative strategic thinking with proven execution capabilities, a combination that set them apart from both smaller firms that lacked operational sophistication and larger firms that had become too rigid in their approaches. During the client presentation, Sarah demonstrated the kind of executive presence that Margaret had once claimed she lacked. She fielded complex questions from Tech Global's executive team with confidence and precision, articulated Henderson's vision with clarity and passion, and commanded respect from a room full of senior executives who had worked with some of the most prestigious consulting firms in the industry. The presentation was masterful in its combination of strategic vision and practical implementation details. Sarah showed how Henderson's approach would address Tech Global's specific challenges, while also positioning them for long-term growth in evolving markets. She demonstrated deep understanding of both the technical aspects of their business and the cultural challenges they would face in integrating two previously competing organizations. When they won the contract, David Henderson pulled Sarah aside afterward. "That was absolutely masterful," he said, his excitement evident in his voice and expression. "You've built something really special here with this team. The way you led that presentation and managed the entire client relationship shows exactly why I knew you were the right person for this role from the moment we first talked." The Tech Global contract success became a turning point for Henderson Strategic Consulting, establishing the company's reputation in markets they had previously been unable to access. Sarah's leadership had not only delivered immediate results, but had positioned the company for sustained growth and market expansion. As Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point, she realized that Margaret's initial rejection had been a catalyst for growth she might never have experienced otherwise. Being told she wasn't ready for leadership had forced her to prove not just to others, but to herself, that she was not only ready but exceptional in ways that transcended traditional corporate hierarchies and expectations. The professional relationship between Sarah and Margaret continued to evolve over the months that followed. Margaret seemed to genuinely appreciate the opportunity to contribute to Henderson's success, even in a supporting role. She occasionally offered insights from her years of experience in corporate consulting, which Sarah considered thoughtfully before incorporating into her broader strategies. Margaret's adaptation to her new role demonstrated a level of professional flexibility that impressed not just Sarah, but the entire Henderson team. She had gone from being a senior executive who made decisions about other people's careers to being a team member who focused on execution and support, and she had done so with grace and genuine commitment to the company's success. One evening in late summer, as they were preparing for a major campaign launch that would introduce Tech Global's integrated service offerings to the European market, Margaret approached Sarah's office and knocked on the open-door frame. "Do you have a minute?" Margaret asked, her tone suggesting that she wanted to discuss something more personal than the usual operational details they covered in their daily interactions. Sarah looked up from her laptop, where she had been reviewing client feedback surveys and performance metrics for their current campaigns. She gestured to the chair across from her desk, and Margaret sat down, seeming to gather her thoughts before speaking. "I owe you an apology, and I've been thinking about how to say this properly," Margaret said finally, her voice carrying a sincerity that Sarah had rarely heard during their time working together at Davidson. "When I told you that you weren't ready for leadership at Davidson, I was wrong. Not just about your capabilities, but about what leadership really means and how it should be evaluated." Sarah waited for Margaret to continue, curious about where this conversation was heading and what had prompted this moment of reflection and admission. "I think I was threatened by your potential," Margaret admitted, her honesty surprising in its directness. "You had fresh ideas, strong client relationships, and a strategic vision that was more innovative than what I was bringing to the table. Instead of mentoring you or finding ways to collaborate and learn from your perspectives, I used my position to limit your opportunities because I was afraid of being overshadowed." The admission was unexpected, and Sarah felt a complex mix of emotions. Vindication, certainly, but also a kind of closure that she hadn't realized she needed. Hearing Margaret acknowledge what Sarah had suspected provided validation for her decision to leave Davidson and confirmation that her perceptions of the situation had been accurate. "I appreciate you saying that, Margaret. It means more than you might realize," Sarah replied, her tone genuine and without any trace of triumph or resentment. Margaret nodded, seeming relieved to have finally articulated thoughts she had apparently been carrying for months. "Working for you has taught me what good leadership actually looks like. You give people autonomy while maintaining clear expectations. You credit your team for successes and take responsibility when things don't go as planned. You create an environment where people can contribute their best work without political maneuvering or fear of being undermined. Those are skills I never fully developed, even after years in management roles." The conversation marked a turning point in their working relationship. Margaret became not just a reliable team member, but someone who actively supported Sarah's leadership and contributed to the collaborative culture that Henderson was building. Her experience and institutional knowledge, combined with her newfound respect for Sarah's capabilities, made her a valuable contributor to the team's continued success. 6 months later, Henderson Strategic Consulting was featured on the cover of Industry Week magazine as one of the fastest-growing consulting firms in the Southwest. The article highlighted Sarah's innovative approach to integrated marketing and quoted several clients praising the company's strategic vision, execution capabilities, and commitment to delivering measurable results. The magazine feature included interviews with clients who described Henderson's work as transformational for their businesses. TechGlobal's CEO was quoted as saying, "Henderson doesn't just execute marketing campaigns, they help us understand our market position and develop strategies that drive sustainable growth." Sarah Martinez and her team have become true strategic partners. In the article, David Henderson credited Sarah with transforming the company's market position and establishing Henderson as a serious competitor to much larger consulting firms. "Sarah joined us during a crucial growth phase and immediately elevated our entire approach to client relationships and market development. She's exactly the kind of leader that drives sustainable success, building teams, developing innovative strategies, and consistently delivering results that exceed client expectations." Reading the article at her desk on a Friday morning, Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction that went beyond professional achievement. She had proven to herself that she could not only handle leadership responsibility but excel at it in ways that created value for clients, opportunities for team members, and sustainable growth for the organization. The magazine article generated additional business opportunities for Henderson, with several companies reaching out to inquire about consulting services after reading about the company's innovative approaches and impressive results. Sarah found herself fielding calls from potential clients who specifically requested to work with her based on her reputation and the methodologies described in the article. Margaret, now settled into her role as a valued and respected team member, had become someone Sarah could count on for reliable execution, institutional knowledge, and honest feedback about client expectations and industry trends. Their working relationship demonstrated that professional growth was possible for everyone, regardless of past mistakes or missed opportunities, when people were willing to acknowledge their limitations and adapt to new circumstances. The story of Sarah's journey from overlooked employee to successful leader became something of a legend within Henderson's growing company culture. New hires often heard about the importance of recognizing potential, supporting ambitious team members, and creating environments where talent could flourish regardless of traditional hierarchies or preconceptions about age, experience, or background. During company meetings and training sessions, Sarah would often reference her own experience as an example of why it was crucial to evaluate people based on their capabilities and potential rather than subjective assessments of readiness or cultural fit. She emphasized that the best organizations are those that create pathways for advancement based on merit and demonstrated performance rather than politics or favoritism. The Henderson team had grown to include specialists from diverse backgrounds and with varying levels of traditional corporate experience. Sarah had deliberately hired people whose talents might have been overlooked by more conventional organizations. Maria Santos, the social media strategist, had been working freelance after being laid off from a Fortune 500 company that downsized their marketing department. Kevin Park had left a prestigious agency where his innovative ideas were consistently rejected in favor of safer, more traditional approaches. This approach to team building reflected Sarah's belief that the best results came from combining different perspectives and experiences rather than hiring people who all shared similar backgrounds or viewpoints. The diversity of the Henderson marketing team in terms of age, experience, cultural background, and professional training had become one of their competitive advantages in developing campaigns that resonated with varied audiences and market segments. As fall approached, Sarah received an invitation that represented another milestone in her professional development. The American Marketing Association had asked her to deliver the keynote address at their annual conference in Las Vegas, speaking to an audience of more than 3,000 marketing professionals about innovative approaches to B2B consulting and client relationship management. The invitation was particularly meaningful because it represented recognition from her professional peers rather than just business success with clients. The AMA conference was considered one of the most prestigious events in the marketing industry, and keynote speakers were typically senior executives from major corporations or renowned academics who had made significant contributions to marketing theory and practice. Sarah's presentation, titled Beyond Executive Presence, Building Marketing Leadership Through Authentic Innovation, drew directly on her experiences at both Davidson and Henderson. She discussed the importance of recognizing talent regardless of traditional markers of readiness, the value of diverse perspectives in strategic planning, and the ways that organizational culture either supports or undermines professional development. The presentation was received with enthusiastic applause and generated significant interest from attendees who approached Sarah afterward to discuss similar challenges they had faced in their own careers. Several executives from major consulting firms expressed interest in learning more about Henderson's approaches to team development and client relationship management. More importantly, the presentation sparked conversations about bias in corporate promotion decisions and the ways that subjective assessments of leadership potential could prevent organizations from developing their most capable people. Sarah's story resonated with many attendees who had experienced similar challenges or who recognized similar patterns in their own organizations. The success of the keynote presentation led to additional speaking opportunities at regional marketing conferences and corporate leadership development programs. Sarah found that sharing her story not only helped other professionals navigate similar challenges, but also reinforced her own understanding of the leadership principles that had driven Henderson's success. Meanwhile, the business continued to grow at an impressive pace. By the end of Sarah's first year at Henderson, the company had expanded to 75 employees, had opened a second office in Denver to serve clients in the Mountain West region, and was consistently ranked among the top consulting firms in their market segment by industry publications and client satisfaction surveys. The Denver office represented a significant milestone for Henderson's expansion strategy. Sarah had been instrumental in identifying the market opportunity, developing the business case for expansion, and establishing the operational framework that would allow the company to maintain its culture and service quality while operating in multiple locations. The expansion also created advancement opportunities for several Henderson team members, including Kevin Park, who was promoted to Regional Marketing Director for the Denver office, and Maria Santos, who became Sarah's deputy and took on increased responsibility for strategic client relationships. These promotions reflected Sarah's commitment to developing talent within the organization rather than always hiring externally for leadership positions. Margaret played a crucial role in the Denver office launch, using her experience with large-scale operations to develop systems and processes that would ensure consistent service delivery across both locations. Her institutional knowledge of client relationship management and campaign coordination proved invaluable in training the new Denver team and establishing protocols that maintained Henderson's reputation for excellence. The professional transformation of both Sarah and Margaret over the course of 18 months demonstrated the importance of creating environments where people could grow and contribute regardless of their previous experiences or positions. Margaret's willingness to work under Sarah's leadership, despite their history, and her genuine commitment to Henderson's success, illustrated a level of professional maturity that ultimately benefited everyone involved. As winter approached, Henderson Strategic Consulting received recognition that validated all the hard work and innovation that had gone into building the company's reputation. The Austin Business Journal named Henderson as the Consulting Firm of the Year, and Sarah was individually recognized as Marketing Executive of the Year for her role in driving the company's growth and establishing innovative approaches to client service. The award ceremony was held at the Austin Convention Center, with more than 500 business leaders in attendance. When Sarah accepted the Marketing Executive Award, she used the opportunity to thank her team and emphasize the collaborative approach that had made Henderson's success possible. "This recognition belongs not just to me but to everyone at Henderson who has contributed to our success," Sarah said during her acceptance speech. "Great marketing results from great teamwork, and I'm fortunate to work with people who bring diverse talents and perspectives to everything we do. When organizations create environments where people can contribute their best work, everyone benefits: clients, team members, and the businesses we serve." The awards generated additional media attention for Henderson, including a feature article in the Austin Business Journal that highlighted the company's growth trajectory and Sarah's leadership philosophy. The article quoted clients praising Henderson's ability to combine strategic thinking with practical implementation, and it positioned the company as a model for how consulting firms could differentiate themselves in competitive markets. David Henderson was quoted in the article describing Sarah's impact on the company. "Sarah has transformed not just our marketing capabilities, but our entire approach to client relationships and business development. She's built a team and a methodology that consistently delivers results that exceed client expectations, and she's done it while creating a workplace culture that attracts and retains exceptional talent." As the calendar year drew to a close, Sarah reflected on the remarkable changes that had occurred since she left Davidson and Associates exactly 12 months earlier. She had gone from being told she wasn't ready for leadership to receiving industry recognition for her innovative approaches and exceptional results. More importantly, she had built a team and a professional environment that aligned with her values and aspirations. The contrast between her current situation and her experience at Davidson wasn't just about titles or compensation, though both had improved dramatically. The fundamental difference was in being part of an organization that valued innovation, recognized contributions, and created opportunities for professional growth based on merit and performance rather than politics or subjective assessments. Looking around the Henderson office on a Friday evening in December, Sarah saw a team of dedicated professionals who had been empowered to do their best work. The company had grown not just in size but in reputation and capability, consistently delivering results that helped clients achieve their business objectives while building a sustainable and profitable consulting practice. Margaret, who was staying late to finalize preparations for a major campaign launch the following Monday, exemplified the positive changes that were possible when people were willing to acknowledge their mistakes and adapt to new circumstances. Her transformation from dismissive supervisor to supportive team member had been remarkable, and her contributions to Henderson's success demonstrated that professional relationships could evolve in positive directions when both parties were committed to growth and mutual respect. The lesson from Sarah's experience extended beyond individual career advancement to broader questions about organizational culture and leadership development. Her story illustrated the importance of believing in yourself even when others don't, taking calculated risks when opportunities for growth present themselves, and creating the kind of workplace culture that brings out the best in everyone. The motorcycle giveaway that had been promised at the beginning of the story was won by Jessica Martinez from São Paulo, Brazil, who had been one of thousands of subscribers who participated by commenting about their location. Her excitement when the winner was announced demonstrated the global reach of Sarah's inspiring story and its resonance with people who had faced similar challenges in their own professional journeys. Today, Henderson Strategic Consulting continues to grow and thrive under Sarah's marketing leadership. The company culture emphasizes mentorship, professional development, and creating pathways for advancement based on merit and potential rather than politics or favoritism. Sarah often speaks at professional conferences about the importance of advocating for yourself and recognizing when it's time to pursue opportunities elsewhere. And her story continues to inspire ambitious professionals who have faced similar challenges in traditional corporate environments. The success of both Sarah and Margaret at Henderson demonstrates that professional growth and positive change are possible at any stage of a career when people are willing to examine their assumptions, acknowledge their mistakes, and commit to creating better outcomes for themselves and the people they work with. Their story serves as a reminder that the best leaders are those who create opportunities for others to succeed, and that true professional satisfaction comes from building something meaningful rather than simply advancing within existing hierarchies. Make sure you've subscribed to our channel, hit that notification bell, and commented with your location for future giveaways. Sarah's journey reminds us that sometimes the best opportunities come from the courage to bet on yourself, even when others can't see your potential, and that true leadership is measured not by the titles you hold, but by the positive impact you create for the people around you.